At a family dinner, she declared, "My ex will always be part of my life. If you don't like it, do not get married to me." Everyone was staring at me. I said, "Fine." By the next week, invitations were cancelled, and she realized the marriage was also cancelled. It all came to a head during a Sunday dinner, one of those stressful pre-wedding family gatherings where two tribes that have nothing in common have to pretend they are about to tie the knot for life. My parents, a calm, conventional couple who have been married for 4 decades, were on one side of the table. On the other side were my fiancée, Laura's parents, a couple of retired psychotherapists who spoke in a language of popular psychology and thought every boundary was a suggestion. And in the middle of it all stood Bruno. Bruno was Laura's ex-boyfriend. But to hear her and her family tell it, he was more like a spiritual brother, an integral part of her personal ecosystem. He was at every celebration, every special occasion, and every dinner. He had a key to her parents' house. He was the ever-present, self-satisfied. I'd made my feelings about him clear from the very start. I'm not an envious man, but I believe in boundaries. I believe a past relationship should remain in the past, not sit at your dinner table exchanging personal jokes with your future wife. My concerns were always met with the same patronizing lecture from Laura and her parents about my overly possessive masculine traits and my inability to accept a more fluid, modern perspective on family. They treated my traditional beliefs like a charming but eventually primitive moral flaw. I went along with it, not because I was a fool, but because I was playing the long game. I was curious to see how far she could push it. I needed to find out if the foundation we were building on was stable rock or just sand. The subject of the wedding seating plan came up over dessert. My mother, a woman who says her mind with a calm but strong dignity, had a simple question. "Laura dear," she started, looking at the draft of the chart, "I see you have Bruno sitting at the main family table just beside your aunt. I was just thinking about whether that was the ideal place for him. Maybe one of the friends' tables could be more suitable." The atmosphere in the room immediately went from chilly to arctic. Laura's mom put her fork down with a clatter. Laura herself turned a deep, furious red. "My mother is only concerned about optics, Laura," I said, getting in before she could explode. "Having your ex-boyfriend at the family table could send a confusing message to our guests." Laura turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "A confusing message? The only confusing message here is that you and your parents are still living in the 1950s. Bruno is my best friend. He is part of the family. He was a part of my life even before you were, and he will be a part of my life long after. Well, he will forever be a part of my life." Her father joined in then, his voice oozing with scorn. "Mark, we've talked about this. Your stiff definition of relationships is what creates insecurity. Laura and Bruno have a wonderful, strengthened connection. You should be appreciating that and not trying to control it." It was a precisely executed 2-on-1 attack, with her mom nodding in heartfelt agreement. They had been doing this type of psychological manipulation for many years. But this time around, it was different. This time, my parents were present, seeing this lady and her family treat me and our upcoming marriage with such informal, arrogant disrespect. Laura, feeling empowered by her parents' approval, proceeded to make use of her advantage. She rose up, placed her hands on her hips, and issued the statement that would bring the whole parade to a crashing halt. She looked from my mom to me, her voice loud and clear for everyone in the room to hear. "Let me make everything completely clear for everybody. My ex will always be a part of my life. He will be present at our wedding ceremony. He will be at our children's baptisms. He will be at our vacation. That is a non-negotiable reality. If you are uncomfortable with that, then don't marry me." The demand lingered in the silent room. It was a declaration of war. Everyone looked at me, eagerly awaiting my reaction. They expected me to disagree, to plead with them to back down, as I had done countless times before, just to maintain the peace. Laura had a self-important, victorious look on her face. She felt she had me cornered. I didn't utter a word for a whole minute. I looked at her, standing there in all her bold arrogance. I looked at her supportive parents, smiling in approval. I looked at my own parents, their faces a combination of shock and calm dignity. And then turned to look back at her. The long game was ended. She had just handed me the final stress test results, and the structure was condemned. I responded with a slow, thoughtful nod. "All right," I said. The word was so calm, so devoid of passion, that it appeared to confuse her. "Fine," she said, her tone sarcastic. "All right, you will behave. Okay, will you stop being an envious child?" "No," I said, standing up from the table. I wrapped my napkin and placed it on my plate. "That's fine, I cannot marry you." I turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, we have to leave." And without another look at Laura or her shocked speechless family, the three of us got out of the house and out of their lives. Update 1, the way back home. The journey back home with my parents was silent for the first 10 minutes. My dad just drove, his eyes concentrated on the road, his hands holding the steering wheel. My mom looked out the window. I believed they were waiting for me to break down and show any sign of remorse or brokenness, but I felt nothing but a deep, almost strange feeling of tranquility. The burden of a 5-year farce has just been removed from my shoulders. Eventually, my father spoke, his voice low and calm. "Are you sure about this, my son?" "I've never been more convinced of anything in my life," I said. My mom turned around from the back seat. There were no tears in her eyes, only a calm, strong pride. "That's fine," she said. "She was not the one for you. We were only waiting for you to see that." When I arrived at my own house, the house I had bought, the one Laura had been living in for the past 2 years, my cell phone was a battle zone. Plenty of missed calls and tons of text messages from Laura, her parents, her friends, and even from Bruno himself. They varied from outrage to confused to begging. "Laura, what was that? You just walked out. You can't be serious. Laura's mother, Mark, you have seriously hurt our daughter. You have to come back and apologize right away. Bruno, dude, what the hell is your problem? You're blowing everything way out of proportion." They were all navigating under the same delusion, thinking this was a tantrum, a short fit of anger that could be soothed with a few patronizing lectures and a non-apology. They hadn't yet understood the finality of the word fine. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I made just one phone call. It was to our wedding planner, a woman called Elizabeth, who was an outstanding expert. "Elizabeth," I said, "it's Mark. There's been a change of plans. The wedding is off, permanently." There was a shocking silence on the other end of the conversation. "What?" "Mark, invitations are planned to be mailed out tomorrow afternoon." "I need you to stop that right away," I responded. "Do not send out a single invitation. As for the rest of it, I want you to start the cancellation process for all suppliers. My fiancée and her entire family will be your point of contact for all financial matters going forward. They had been handling the payments, therefore, they will need to deal with the refunds and the cancellation expenses. This was a critical aspect of my strategy. I hadn't paid for the wedding. Her dad had, a fact he had made sure everybody was aware of. Now the financial burden of unraveling an enormous 6-figure event was his problem, not mine. The following morning, the real shockwave hit. Elizabeth, carrying out her job with brutal efficiency, started making the calls. The initial one, of course, was to Laura's parents. I would have given $1,000 to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. The caterer, the floral designer, the musicians, and the venue, each call was another nail in the coffin of their grand social gathering. Another huge non-refundable deposit lost. Laura's father contacted me, his voice a strangled scream. "What have you done? Do you realize how much money we are losing? You can't just do that." "I didn't do anything at all," I said, my voice calm. "I have only accepted your daughter's conditions. She gave me an ultimatum: accept her ex-boyfriend as a permanent aspect of our marriage, or don't marry her. I chose the last option. I respected her boundaries. The consequences of your decision are now yours to deal with. He started talking about lawyers and cases and breach of promise. Breach of promise? I laughed, a chilly, empty sound. You were present, Tom. You heard her. You have a lot of witnesses who heard her give an ultimatum at a family dinner. She made the continuation of our marriage conditional, and I just turned down the conditions. There is no case. There is simply the bill for the event you are no longer hosting. I hung up. The next individual to appear was Laura herself. She came to my house that afternoon, using her key to get in. She met me in the living room, surrounded by empty boxes. I was packing her belongings. "What are you doing?" she screamingly asked, her face a mask of confusion. "I'm helping you move," I said, not even looking up. "You're going to need to find another place to live. You cannot kick me out. I live here." "No, Laura," I said, slowly standing up to face her. "You've been living here. This is my house. My name is on the property, and your invitation has been withdrawn. I will be changing the locks tomorrow. I recommend you make arrangements for your parents to come and pick up your belongings." She eventually broke down, her arrogant and confident facade collapsing to reveal the scared, entitled child underneath. She screamed. She pleaded. She begged. She said she didn't mean it, that it was just a silly thing to say, and that she loved me. I just stayed there, unmoved. The time for that, Laura, was when my mom was at your dinner table and was treated with disrespect. The moment for that was before you made your ex-boyfriend a condition of our marriage. You made your decision. Now I'm making mine. Update 2. The 30 days that followed were a long, harsh lesson for Laura in the concept of repercussions. She and her family had lived every day in a cozy, padded world of second options and consequence-free options, a world cushioned by their money and their mutual belief in intellectual superiority. That world had now vanished. The first lesson was financial. Her dad, after a week of threats and bluster, finally understood I was not going to contribute a single dime to the financial calamity of the cancelled wedding. The final cost for the lost deposits and cancellation fees, I heard, was approximately $100,000. It was a startling blow, even for them. The second lesson was social. They were trying to manipulate the narrative, of course. They informed their acquaintances that I was mentally unstable and that I had a breakdown and called off the wedding for no valid reason. But the narrative was too fantastic, too spicy. Many people had been at that dinner. The story of Laura's ultimatum and my calm, ultimate acceptance spread like wildfire across their social circle. She was not the victim. She was the arrogant fiancée who had exaggerated her hand and lost everything. Laura, after being forced to get out of my house, had to go back in with her parents. The environment in that house, I was informed, was toxic. Her parents, facing huge financial loss and public disgrace, despised her. They were continuously fighting. The thin veneer of their evolved family dynamics ripped away to reveal the horrible, dysfunctional truth underneath. Bruno, the ex-boyfriend, the guy who was so important to her life, proved to be less than useless in a real crisis. He was a delightful accessory for a woman who had a solid, successful fiancé. He was not interested in providing the support system for a broke, jobless, and emotionally unpredictable single lady. He steadily, discreetly began to distance himself. The endless calls and messages stopped. He was busy. He had other intentions. He was, in the end, just another fair-weather friend. While her world was burning down, I was quietly restoring mine. I took a 2-week vacation to Europe, a journey I had always wanted to embark on but had put off since Laura had no interest in it. I came back feeling refreshed and clear-headed.